If the crickets stop, freeze. Mine cut off at 1:17 a.m., and the trailhead printer kept printing anyway. The second receipt slid out warm against my fingertips, which meant the gate would log a movement it never saw. And the permit packet had warned that any movement logged during silence would be processed. A thin plastic badge clip held our permit to my pack strap, stamped S7 in a corner that looked too crisp for that battered kiosk. My probation review sat on my calendar like a guillotine, and the sensor data behind the closed zone gate was the last deliverable my supervisor had circled in red. Walking away felt smarter, but smart didn't keep access. The gate stood at the start of an old service road, steel tube frame, padlock, and a black scanner box that blinked once every few seconds. A laminated notice hung from a zip tie, water-stained at the bottom, and a coffee ring had dried into the plastic like a bruise. It read, "If you hear insects stop, you freeze. If you move, do not look up." My partner watched me read it twice because I always read things twice when I'm scared. "Keep it tight," I muttered, and my thumb tapped the clip out of habit. 1, 2, like it could force the world to behave. The scanner beeped, the lock clicked, and the gate swung inward without a creak. A paper trail register sat on a metal pedestal right past the gate, clipboard chained to it, pen tied on a string. Someone had written a warning on the inside cover in thick marker, then scrubbed at it until fibers peeled. "Stay on gravel." A smear ran through the last word, so it could have been gravel or grave, and I hated that my brain tried both. The service road started wide and pale under our headlamps, then narrowed into 2 strips of compacted rock with grass pushing up between. My partner joked about how every closed zone still had trash in it, because a crushed soda can glinted near the first culvert. The joke died when the crickets died too, and the darkness between the trees stopped feeling like empty space. A few steps later, the scanner behind us chirped again, even though no one touched it. The sound came from the wrong direction, like it had traveled through the dirt first, and the chain on the register twitched once as though someone had brushed past. My hands tightened around the strap so hard the webbing bit into my palm. We froze, both of us, because the laminated notice had gotten one thing across in plain language. My partner's breath made a small cloud in the headlamp beam, and the beam showed the most insulting detail. Tiny gnats hung perfectly still over the road, not drifting, not falling. The world held position like a paused screen, and my skin crawled with the urge to scratch. That urge almost made me break it right there, because a bite flared on my wrist, and my fingers moved on reflex. The itch felt too loud in my head, like a flashlight in a dark room, so I pressed my nails into my thigh instead, and stared at the gravel at my feet. My partner mouthed words without sound, then swallowed them and stood rigid. The crickets returned in a soft wave, not all at once, and my shoulders dropped before I meant them to. Relief should have tasted clean, but my tongue had that dry paper feeling from breathing with my mouth open. I forced myself to look at the permit packet again because procedure is the only thing I trust when fear starts rewriting the rules. The packet included an emailed memo printout, the kind with faint toner bands, folded twice and stapled to the permit receipt. The subject line, printed like a normal office message, read, "Restricted Access Silent Sector Overnight Permit," and the footer carried a revision tag in tiny gray letters that my eyes kept snagging on. One line on the page had been smudged into a faint fog. "If the crickets return, do not celebrate." My partner nudged the pack strap. "Careful." "Turn back," my partner said, voice low, and the words hit my chest like a shove because they were the sane choice. The sane choice would also put me in my supervisor's office in the morning, watching my access get cut while I pretended I wasn't relieved to be fired. A red indicator light blinked ahead on the service road, steady and patient, and I recognized it from the equipment map. Acoustic recorder station. A box on a post with a little weather hood. The data mattered, which meant my legs kept moving even while my brain screamed at me. Keep it tight. Slipped out again. And my thumb found the clip and tapped. The recorder station sat just off the gravel 2 feet into the grass, and a strip of reflective tape marked its post. The tape looked fresh, but a small triangle of adhesive residue sat above it, like something had been peeled off and stuck back wrong. I didn't like that the triangle matched the notch pattern on the corner of the permit packet, because coincidence doesn't line up that neatly. A handwritten tag dangled from the recorder latch on a string, plastic card with a fat black X across it. The card said, "If the insects stop near a station, do not service it. Log no touch and move on." Under that, a second line had been scribbled and half scraped away. "Do not step off the rock for any reason." My partner stayed on the gravel like the smeared register warning, while I knelt with one knee on the road and leaned toward the box without crossing the grass line. The latch looked sealed, but the seal sticker had been pressed over another sticker, and the edges didn't match. My headlamp flickered once, and the recorder's indicator light blinked out at the exact same time. Silence slammed down so hard my ears rang. The rule hit like a muscle memory drill. Freeze. My body obeyed, but my mind spun because the silence didn't just remove sound, it removed the tiny proof that time moved forward. The LED on the recorder stayed dark, and a thin drift of ozone smell rose from the black box, sharp like burned insulation. My partner made the smallest sound, a breath that turned into a cough, and I saw the reaction rather than heard it. A ripple moved through the grass like wind, but no leaves shifted overhead, and the ripple traveled toward the gravel as if drawn by that cough. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. A minute later, the crickets returned again, weaker, like something was muffling them with a hand. My partner whispered, "Road," and pointed at our footprints, because the gravel showed a line of disturbed stone that stopped mid-step. The last print looked pressed deeper than it should, like the ground had softened under a heel and kept the shape. The rational explanation tried to climb into my head first. Speakers, ultrasonic tests, noise suppression, some private contractor doing stupid things in a closed zone. The other explanation crawled in behind it, colder. Something here listened for motion, the way a system listens for inputs. And the silence wasn't absence, it was attention. I chose the rational one because it let me act. The phone in my pocket had one bar at the gate and none now, but it still had a camera, so I set it on the gravel, pointing at the grass edge, and hit record. I tossed a pebble off the road, just a flick of my fingers, and watched it bounce through dead leaves until it vanished. The crickets stopped exactly when the pebble stopped moving. The phone's screen showed the grass ripple again, tracking the pebble's last bounce point, then hesitating like it had lost a signal. My throat tightened and I wanted to grab the phone and run, but running felt like signing something without reading it. I tapped the permit clip twice instead, stupid ritual, and picked the phone back up slowly. The video file saved with a normal timestamp, but the audio track showed a flat line even before the silence hit. That meant either my phone was lying or the silence had started earlier than my ears noticed, and both options tasted like trouble. My partner's eyes shone hard in the headlamp beam, the way they do when anger is trying to become courage. A knot of guilt stuck in my chest because I'd pitched this like a quick data grab, a clean in and out, and I hadn't told my partner about the probation review until we were already driving. That small lie sat between us now, heavy and childish, and the quiet made it feel like a physical object on the road. I needed to fix at least one thing I broke. We turned back toward the gate, because the best containment plan still starts with leaving. A reflective marker on a tree showed the way, the kind used for approved trails, and it flashed under my headlamp like a coin. The next marker flashed too, but the spacing between them felt wrong, because the road should have curved toward the creek by now. My legs kept walking while my eyes searched for the culvert we passed, and the absence of that landmark made my stomach drop. My partner said, "Wrong," and crouched to touch the gravel because my partner grew up fixing motorcycles and trusts surfaces more than stories. The rock under their glove felt warm, not from sun because no sun existed at that hour, and warmth on gravel at night has one job: to be noticed. My partner pulled their hand back fast. The crickets stopped again the moment my partner's glove left the ground. We froze, both of us, and I held my breath until my lungs burned because even breath felt like movement. A faint clicking started somewhere above, mechanical and steady, like a ballpoint pen being clicked by an impatient hand. The sound didn't belong in the woods, and it came in perfect rhythm until it stopped all at once. That sound registered later for what it was, and the thought made me move my eyes upward before my body moved. The canopy stayed still, but a trail camera sat strapped to a branch, its tiny indicator light off, lens pointed directly down at the road. My pulse kicked hard enough to make me dizzy. The crickets returned with a thin stutter, and my partner staggered one step, not from fear, from pain. A sharp rock shifted under their boot and rolled, and their ankle buckled with a soft crunch that made bile rise in my throat. The rule screamed at me to freeze, but the person I loved sagged, and the choice wasn't a choice. I grabbed my partner's arm and hauled them back onto the gravel. The quiet moved toward us like a tide pulled by gravity. My partner hissed a curse, then bit it off, and leaned on me with a grimace that tried to be a smile. "Keep going," my partner said, and the words made me angry because they were permission to be reckless. The smell of sweat and dirt on my partner's jacket hit my nose, and that human smell felt like the only real thing left. Resource loss arrived fast, because the moment I broke the freeze rule, the world charged me for it. The headlamp beam narrowed into a tight cone, like the lens had fogged, and my backup light refused to turn on when I clicked it. Light became a ration. The gate should have been a straight walk away, but the service road kept giving me new gravel underfoot, no gate, no register, no scanner. My brain tried to recalculate distance like a GPS, and I caught myself using the wrong word for it in my head, attenuation, like sound science could solve geometry. I hated myself for reaching for jargon like a shield. A second laminated card hung from a post we hadn't seen on the way in, paper curled inside the plastic. The card carried the same subject line as the email memo, like someone had printed it from the same file. But the bottom corner had been torn off and taped back wrong. It read, "If the insects stop a third time, you do not return to the gate. You return to the station and wait." My partner stared at that line and shook their head, slow. "Trap," my partner said, and the simplicity of it made my stomach clench because it matched my own fear. The gate was safety. Waiting in the woods felt like consent. Another sentence on the card had been smudged into gray, then overwritten darker like someone had corrected it with a pen. "Do not speak the permit stamp out loud." Under that, a faint imprint of letters still showed, the ghost of what used to be there. And my eyes caught confirm like a splinter. I didn't notice it then, not really, but my thumb kept snagging the permit corner where the notch pattern didn't line up. I forced the paper flat against my thigh, because fussing with paper felt safer than looking into the trees. Then I made the choice that felt responsible and stupid at the same time. I tried calling the ranger dispatch number on the permit. No signal bars showed, but the call connected anyway, and that fact hit harder than any spooky noise. A woman's voice came through clean, too clean, like it had never traveled through air. "Silent sector line," the voice said, and then the voice added, "State current stamp." My partner's eyes widened and their lips formed a hard no. The laminated card had warned me not to say it, but dispatch asking made it feel official, and official language has a way of overriding survival instinct. My throat tightened and the urge to comply almost won, because that's what probation teaches. I didn't say it. "I need medical help," I said instead, because I refused to trade a stamp for my partner's ankle. My voice sounded small against the open trees, and the phone speaker crackled with a faint hiss that smelled somehow like hot plastic. The dispatcher paused. "Proceed to marker post," the voice said. "Step off road, retrieve kit." My partner barked a laugh that turned into a grimace. "No," my partner said into the night, not at the phone, at me, at the whole setup. That single word felt like rebellion, and it also felt like a signature on a document that would cost us. The crickets stopped again, hard and sudden. Freeze should have been impossible with my partner leaning on me, but my body locked anyway, and I felt the tremor in my partner's muscles as they fought pain and instinct. The phone call stayed connected, and the silence swallowed the tiny speaker hiss until the only sound left was my own heartbeat, loud enough to make my teeth hurt. A shadow moved on the edge of my headlamp cone, not in the beam, just outside it, where the light fell away. The shape cut across the grass in a straight line that ignored branches and brush, like a cursor sliding across a screen. My stomach dropped, and my eyes wanted to chase it up into the trees. The laminated notice at the gate said, "Do not look up." I stared at the gravel and let panic loop through my head like a bad song. Close the eyes. Open the eyes. Close them again. My partner's breath hitched once, and the shadow stopped moving the moment the breath hitched, which meant it was listening to our bodies, not our feet. The crickets returned, weak again, and the call ended on its own with a soft click. My phone showed the call duration as a normal number of minutes, but the battery had dropped from almost full to red in that one connection. Communication became a ration, too. We found the marker post the voice had mentioned, because of course we did, and it stood 3 feet off the road with a red reflector band. A metal box sat on it, lid open like it had been waiting, and a white first aid kit lay inside, wrapped in plastic. Then, the kit should have been sealed, but the plastic had a slit in it that looked cut, not torn. My partner stared at the kit like it was a snake. "Take it," my partner said, and the words hit me like a moral test. Taking it meant stepping off gravel, breaking the register warning, breaking the unofficial rule. Not taking it meant my partner's ankle swelling in the dark while I pretended procedure mattered more than pain. Both choices left evidence. I stepped off the gravel and grabbed the kit fast. The grass under my boot felt slick, not wet. Slick like it had been pressed flat by something heavy that slid. My skin prickled, and the smell that rose up was soil mixed with ozone, the same sharp tang as the recorder station. I hauled the kit back onto the road and shoved it at my partner like I was handing over a live wire. My partner ripped it open and wrapped the ankle with shaking hands, because competence doesn't disappear when fear shows up. The wrap worked, but the cost landed immediately. The permit clip on my strap snapped, cheap plastic breaking clean, and the stamped receipt fluttered into the grass. Paper became a loose part, and loose parts get lost. I went for it without thinking, and the crickets stopped the moment I bent. Silence hit, and I froze, half crouched. One hand extended toward the fallen permit, fingers inches from the paper. The paper didn't lie still. It slid a fraction of an inch deeper into the grass, slow and deliberate, pulled by something that didn't care about wind. My throat tightened around a sound I couldn't afford to make. My partner's hand clamped on my shoulder, steadying me, and that touch felt like a line of electricity. Heat from my partner's palm met the cold on my skin, and my brain screamed to move, to grab, to fix the mess. The rule said freeze, and freezing meant watching the paper get taken. I made the choice that will stain me forever, and I chose paper over fear. My fingers snatched the permit back onto gravel. The silence didn't move like a tide this time. It moved like a beam, thin and focused, crossing the road and landing on the exact spot where my boot had stepped off gravel. The grass there didn't sway. It flattened in a clean oval, like a chair had been set down. A second oval appeared beside it, slightly smaller, and then a third, as if something was taking a seat to watch. The crickets returned, and I dragged my partner forward before my legs could argue. A small maintenance shed showed up ahead. Corrugated metal, the kind used to store tools, and it shouldn't have existed inside a closed zone. A padlock hung open on its hasp, swinging slowly, and the air around the door smelled like old oil and paper. Safe space appeared, and I hated that I craved it. Inside, a folding chair sat under a dim battery lantern, and a binder lay open on the chair seat like someone had been reading and walked away. The binder tab had been torn off, leaving a ragged strip of plastic, and the first page where it carried the same S7 stamp in the corner as my permit. My stomach dropped, because that stamp wasn't just on paper now. It was in the place. My partner lowered onto the floor with a controlled wince, back against the wall, eyes shut tight, like holding on to pain by not looking at it. I set the binder on my knees and flipped pages with careful fingers, because paper cuts feel like betrayal when nerves already scream. A printed checklist on yellow paper lay inside, and someone had circled one line hard enough to rip fibers. The circled line read, "If the crickets stop inside shelter, do not open the door." Below it, a second line sat in bold, and the toner looked fresher than the rest. "If dispatch requests the stamp, do not comply." The next sentence had been smudged, then rewritten by a printer, letters sharper than the page around them. "Compliance counts as consent." That made my stomach twist, because it wasn't supernatural language, it was policy language. A handwritten note was clipped behind that page, graphite on torn notebook paper, and the handwriting looked tired. It said, "Gate logs movement during silence. No movement logged means no processing." One word at the bottom had been written twice, harder the second time. Gravel. Two explanations fought in my head, and both felt real. A human system could be weaponizing compliance, using permits and logs to track who enters and punish who breaks protocol, maybe to protect some ugly project. Another possibility sat underneath, colder. Something here used the human system as bait, because humans already obey paper. I ran a test to prove the human explanation. The shed had a cheap trail camera mounted inside above the door, pointed at the entry, probably for equipment theft. I turned it on, then set my phone camera on a shelf facing the same view. 2 witnesses, because redundancy is how I survive audits. If someone was manipulating the shed camera feed, my phone would catch the mismatch. My partner watched me with that exhausted look that says love and fear are sharing the same space. "Keep it tight," I murmured, more for myself than anyone. Then I cracked the shed door open an inch, just enough to show the gravel road and the trees beyond. And I waited. Crickets chirped outside, thin and uneven. A minute passed. Another passed. Then the sound stopped. Not just outside, but inside the shed, too. Like the silence had crossed the threshold without opening it. The lantern flame didn't flicker. The air felt heavier, like breathing through a damp cloth, and my scalp prickled with the urge to look up at the camera lens. A shape filled the crack of the door. Not a face, not an animal. A clean absence, like the darkness had been cut into a person-shaped block, edges too straight for anything alive. The shape didn't push the door wider. It just occupied the inch of space like a file in a folder, and the shed's trail camera made a soft shutter sound that didn't match its cheap electronics. The crickets returned all at once. I looked down at the phone first, because I needed the human explanation to win, and the phone screen showed the door crack empty. The shed camera's tiny status light blinked, and when I checked its playback, the frame showed me standing alone with the door closed. No crack, no outside. Both recordings contradicted my eyes, and that meant the system could rewrite proof without leaving fingerprints. My partner's voice came out hoarse. "Leave," my partner said. "Now." We limped out, my partner leaning hard on me, and I forced my eyes to stay on the gravel because the shed binder had made one thing clear. Attention followed thresholds. The road felt narrower than before, the trees closer, and my headlamp beam looked swallowed at the edges like someone had placed a hand over the lens. The crickets started again, faint, and for a few minutes we made progress toward what should have been the gate. Each time my partner stumbled, I shifted weight carefully, because a stumble counts as movement and movement gets logged. My mind kept counting steps without meaning to, another stupid habit from old jobs where miscounts meant mistakes. A reflective marker appeared ahead with fresh tape on it, and relief hit me hard enough to make my knees weak. The gate had to be near markers. Then I got close enough to read what was taped there, and the relief turned sour. A new printed strip torn from a receipt printer had been taped to the tree with clear packing tape. The strip carried the same subject line as the email memo, and the paper still held warmth, like it had just been printed. One line read, "If crickets return, proceed quickly to exit." The smudged line beneath it had been "Do not celebrate" earlier. Now it read in clean toner, "Do not hesitate. State stamp at exit." False Victory tried to put a hand on my shoulder, and I shrugged it off, because I recognized the shape of that sentence. It wasn't a warning, it was an instruction, designed to hurry me past thinking. The system wanted me to speak S7 out loud in a place it could count it. My partner's fingers dug into my arm hard enough to bruise. "No speaking," my partner said, and I nodded because I couldn't trust my own mouth. The road ahead opened into a wider stretch, and the air filled with cricket noise again. Almost normal. We hit a line in the gravel where the insects sounded full, like a switch had been flipped. And for 2 breaths, I let myself believe we'd found the edge of the silent sector. My shoulders dropped, my heart unclenched, and I tasted relief like clean water. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket without any signal, and that vibration felt like a threat. A notification popped up, plain text on a dark screen, from no sender, no number. It read, "Permit incomplete. Return to station." My partner stared at the screen. and a small laugh escaped, sharp and humorless. "System," my partner said, and that single word carried the whole betrayal. The quiet wasn't just in the trees, it was in paperwork. The crickets stopped behind us, not ahead. That directional wrongness grabbed my spine because silence should have enveloped, not chased. The sound died from the back of the road forward like a zipper closing, and the line of dead sound moved toward our heels. We froze, but freezing now meant letting the silence catch up and log us where we stood. My brain found a loophole in the binder note. No movement logged means no processing. Movement logged during silence triggers processing. That meant the safest option might be to move while sound existed, to outrun the silence line without stepping during it. It felt like a math problem, written by a predator. "Run," my partner whispered. And the whisper was the mistake. The silence surged forward and snapped down around us like a net. A mechanical click started in the trees again, that pen-click rhythm, closer now, and I felt the vibration of it through the gravel under my boots. My partner's breath hitched, and I could feel their whole body shaking against mine. Panic wanted to turn my head and find the source, but the rule about looking up burned behind my eyes. My thumb hit the permit corner again, and the notch pattern snagged on my nail. That notch line mattered, and I finally let the thought form. The permit had been punched wrong on purpose. The register warning, the binder note, the triangle residue above the recorder tape, the notch on the permit corner. All of it pointed at one stupid physical alignment. I pulled the permit packet up in front of my chest, holding it flat, and I scanned the road for any metal post, any place a punched corner could fit, because systems love templates. A metal signpost stood 10 feet ahead on the gravel shoulder. The back of a faded closure sign and a small bolt hole sat near its top like an old mounting point. The hole matched the notch corner size almost perfectly. My hands shook so hard the permit rattled, but I forced it forward, corner toward the hole. The crickets stayed silent. The moment the notch touched the bolt hole, a thin line of sound cracked open. Not in the woods, not from insects, from the scanner box at the gate. A single chirp came from far ahead, through trees, through distance that shouldn't carry it. My throat tightened because the system had just acknowledged the paper alignment. My partner's eyes widened, and my partner mouthed a question I refused to answer. I shoved the permit corner into the hole and held it there like I was pinning a butterfly. The silence didn't lift, but the pen click sound stopped. A new sound replaced it, low and wet, like breath through a plastic mask, coming from the signpost itself, through metal that can't breathe. My skin crawled, and every instinct screamed to jerk back. I held because letting go felt like failing the only test that wasn't designed to trap me. The crickets returned in a thin strip of sound like a corridor opening. We moved into that strip fast, dragging my partner with me, because movement inside sound felt safe compared to movement inside silence. The corridor of sound ran along the gravel like a lane marker, and outside that lane the grass looked darker, heavier, like it could swallow a boot hole. The gate appeared ahead finally, and it looked wrong. The scanner box glowed with a steady green light it never had before, and a new laminated card hung from the chain with fresh staples, corners crisp. The card read, "At exit, you state stamp and confirm completion." A second line, in smaller print, sat below like a footnote. "Failure to confirm triggers follow-up." My partner gripped my sleeve hard enough to tear fabric. "No," my partner said. And that no was for the card, the system, the voice on the phone, all of it. My mouth felt full of dry paper, and the stamp S7 on my permit corner looked suddenly like a hook. The choice slammed into me again, sharper than before, because my partner couldn't climb the gate in silence with an injured ankle. Speaking the stamp felt like signing away something I couldn't name. Staying meant letting the silence catch up and log us in place. I chose the only option that fit my job-trained brain: documentation. The phone camera turned on, lens aimed at the scanner box, and I hit record with shaking hands. I held the permit stamp up to the lens without speaking. Then I slid the paper under the scanner, like a badge swipe without a badge. The scanner didn't beep. The scanner spoke. "Completion confirmed," it said in the dispatch voice. My stomach flipped, because a scanner shouldn't have a voice, and it shouldn't know completion. The gate lock clicked open anyway, and the crickets outside the fence sounded normal, full, careless. Relief tried to flood me, and fear blocked it, because the system had just filled in the missing step for me. My partner limped through the gate first, because protection beats pride, and I followed, eyes fixed on gravel until the last second. The moment my boot crossed the threshold, the phone screen went black. Not dead. Black like a video file with no frames. The record corrupted at the exact moment the gate admitted us. We made it to the car with my partner half carrying and me half dragging, and the first thing I heard once the doors shut was the normal hum of the engine and distant highway noise. That normal sound should have felt like rescue, but it felt like camouflage, because it meant whatever tracked silence could travel under noise without being noticed. My partner stared out the windshield at the gate and whispered, "Stay on gravel," like a prayer. And the phrase hit me in the chest because it had been right all along. I started the car and drove without looking back, because looking back felt like acknowledging something that wanted acknowledgement. At home, my partner got medical care, and I sat at my kitchen table with the permit packet spread out under a lamp like evidence. The S7 stamp looked slightly blurred now, like ink had bled, and the notch corner had a faint smear of gray on it that smelled like ozone. My thumb tapped the broken clip twice, out of habit, then stopped when I realized the habit didn't help anymore. The next morning, my work email had a new message in a folder I didn't use, a folder name that wasn't mine. The subject line matched the permit memo exactly, and the attachment icon showed the same PDF I'd printed, except the revision tag at the bottom had changed by one digit. The smudged line that had warned, "Do not celebrate," was gone completely, replaced with clean text, "Do not attempt re-entry." I filed an incident report with photos, not because I believed anyone would save me, but because paper is the only language the system speaks. The report vanished from sent within an hour. A copy appeared on my desktop in a folder labeled with S7, and my stomach dropped because I hadn't created that folder. The trailhead register sits in my glove box now, torn free of its chain when I went back in daylight because I couldn't leave that warning behind for the next permit buyer. I wrote one line on the inside cover, thick marker, simple, and then I taped the corner where the paper had been scrubbed raw so it couldn't be erased again. The line reads, "If you've seen that symbol before, don't ignore it." A week later, a binder showed up in the supply room at work with a torn tab and a coffee ring on the cover, stamped S7 in the corner like it belonged. I keep asking myself one question and it won't stop tightening my throat. Why did the system open the gate without the stamp? Unless the stamp was never for exit.